Hello and good afternoon and welcome to LVS Perspectives, number 66, can you believe it? An audience with Joe Shearer, who is the Programmes Manager at the Amy Winehouse Foundation. We're so pleased that Joe's with us today. He was in school back, and we think it was October, it just feels quite a while ago now, but he did amazing presentations to our children, and we're really pleased that he can make it back today. And Joe's going to talk to you about everything he does with the foundation, what our children heard from him, and this is a time for you to interact with us as well. So you can put questions in the chat if you want to, or I do have my phone with me, so if you want to email me so it's not it's a little bit more anonymous, please do, and I can pass those questions on to Joe as we go along as well. So Joe, over to you. Welcome.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for having me back again. I really appreciate it. It's lovely, and I loved seeing the intro. It reminded me actually being back at the school briefly, so thank you for that. Yeah, I suppose I just want to kick off really with explaining what the charity actually is, why we were set up, what we do, and kind of give an example of what I've done at the school back in October. So as you can see there, thank you, Eamon. That was amazing. There, it was like seamless. You know exactly what to do. There is Amy Winehouse there. Obviously, I'm assuming we all knew who Amy Winehouse was. World famous singer, world class singer. I was a big fan of her music. She obviously, from what we know through the media and through general life, I suppose, really, Amy struggled a lot with addiction issues. Okay, she was addicted to alcohol and other substances as well, some other drugs. But Amy suffered as well, what a lot of people don't know, from an eating disorder as well. Amy really struggled to kind of manage her weight. She was very self-conscious. She struggled with low self-esteem and low self-worth. Sometimes wasn't sure if she was good enough. She had some kind of press around relationship issues as well. So you can see from a really young age, Amy was struggling, as well as having this amazing talent. She was struggling, and tragically, yes, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, Amy actually passed away, and she actually passed away from alcohol poisoning. A lot of people think Amy passed away from a drug overdose. Yes, alcohol is a drug, but for separating those, it was actually alcohol poisoning. She had too much to drink one night, and her body couldn't process how much she'd drunk. So she passed away, and her family, obviously, you can imagine, were devastated. They've lost their little girl, they've lost their sister. So it was a really, really sad time for them. But they said they didn't want to bury their heads in the sand. They wanted to try and help other people, not go through what they went through as a family, and not go through what Amy went through. So they decided to set up the charity, Amy Winehouse Foundation, where we do a lot of projects really, but one of the main ones I'm going to talk about today, and what I delivered with your children, is our resilience program. So we go into schools nationally, all around the UK, and we speak to a lot of young people aged 11 to 18, a lot more around about addiction and substances. But rather than maybe having an example of this is a class A, this is a class B, it's a stimulant, this is what this drug does, it affects the central nervous system like this. We don't do that, although a lot of that is valuable information, of course. We look at more the underlying issues around why do people drink and take drugs. We look at the reasons why people would choose to do that, whether that be self-esteem, peer pressure, other underlying issues, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. But that's one of our main projects. We also have a project called Recovery Pathways, that's for 18 to 30-year-olds. Where we help people who are directly affected with addiction, either through some counselling, whether it be seeing how we can get them into recovery for a certain pathway in the community. On occasions, a couple of times a year, we actually fund people through rehab ourselves. And we have a project called Amy's Place as well. That's for young women aged 18 to 30, where women who are already in abstinent recovery, we're able to provide them with a flat where they can live for up to 2 years. So it's a kind of communal house, but they have their individual flat where these women can live and rebuild their lives, because a lot of them have gone through, I suppose, a lot of traumatic events, sometimes domestic abuse, things like that. So these women need somewhere safe to live. So they're able to work on their recovery and rebuild their lives at the same time, really. So that's what we do there. And we have some projects in the Caribbean which Amy love the Caribbean, so we have some projects that help the young people out there, some music projects. So that's kind of the foundation as a whole. Really gives you a bit of information about that. But because I haven't got too much time, and I just want to get straight into it, so I can get to answering some questions from you guys in a bit. So, Eamon, if you don't mind, could you go on to the next slide for me, please? Thank you. So normally what I want us to do is start thinking of stereotypes as I'm speaking, or maybe even just before. So stereotypes of someone who is struggling with mental health or low self-esteem. And I want us to be stereotypical. Please don't think you can't be. I want you to think of these things. Because a stereotype I might have of someone with low self-esteem or struggling with mental health, you think might be looking moody, not really wanting to talk, seem quite negative, not seeming positive in the world, doesn't really want to get out and even go for a walk. The thought of exercise they couldn't do, thought of making their bed they couldn't do, don't want to go work, don't want to get out of bed. That's the kind of stereotype I'd say with someone who's struggling with mental health or low self-esteem. Feel free to say some more in the chat if you want to. Some stereotype, someone who's struggling with alcohol and drugs. For me, the big stereotype used to be, well, I think an alcoholic was someone who was living on a park bench, someone who was homeless, someone who might be hiding their alcohol in a brown paper bag, not letting anyone know. Or you can see the stereotypical person walking down the street, someone's begging for money. They're the kind of stereotypes that come to mind for me. And actually, if I'm looking at a stereotype who's someone who's not struggling with any of those, you might think, well, there must be normal, whatever that is, normal, healthy person, going to work, paying bills, good days, bad days, like the rest of us, or good moments, positive moods, negative moods, something might happen. So it doesn't look like they've got struggling with any of those. Okay, so just want to keep that in mind as we're going along. And so I was going to be speaking to you guys a little bit about me, so you understand what it is I delivered with your young children. So I grew up in North East London. Okay, I'm from a place called Walthamstow. None of you heard of that, or some of you have. I grew up in North East London. I'm the son of a London black cab driver and my mum who works in the school. My dad's, again, thinking of a stereotype, my dad is that stereotypical, I would say, like geezer mentality. My dad isn't a kind of pub drinking person. He's not like, shouting at the TV, watching football or anything like that. But he is a very stereotypical man. Like, he doesn't talk about his feelings. He's a big, strong, tough man on the outside. He looks, he's quite charismatic. He was always at parties, and you could hear my dad's like making the room laugh. He was always loud. He was always confident. He'd be that kind of person. That's how my dad is. But you ask him, Dad has work. He'd be like, yeah, fine, son. Dad has that. Yes, fine, son. Dad, what about that thing over there? Is that all right? Yeah, sweet, son. My dad does not talk about feelings. That's literally as far as his conversation will go. My mum, on the other hand, she is the opposite of him, right? She's like this 5'1" tiny little angel who speaks about our emotions and feelings all the time. She always used to say to me and my two older sisters, like, like darlings, it's okay to speak about feelings, don't you? Speaking such an angelic voice. Was my dad's more like, feelings? What are you talking about, son? We're geezers. We ain't got feelings. Let's give you another example of him. I remember falling off my bike when I was a kid. We was in the park, me and my two older sisters. I fell off my bike. My dad picked the bike up first to make sure the bike was all right. Even though like I was cut on my knee, he picked the bike up first. He even spun the front wheel just to make sure the bike was still working all right. I'm there crying. And what I've got to point out, by the way, he's really not a bad guy. He's an amazing man. He's an amazing man. He's so hardworking, so loving, always provided for me, my sisters, and my mum. My dad just can't show you kind of like physical affection and emotions. And I kind of think I know why now, because my mum and dad grew up in a very, very tough environment, very tough era. They're inner city London kids from Islington, Clerkenwell, and the East End. Further generations back in Bethnal Green, places like that. They grew up in a very tough environment, very tough era. And let's give you an example. Neither of them, they grew up on two opposite council estates, and neither one of them actually had a toilet inside their homes. They had a toilet outside on a landing, which they shared with the family next door. If they wanted a bath, they had to go and pay for the public baths. They didn't have a shower. So grew up in a tough environment. So my dad, I think, kind of probably felt he had to be big and strong and tough. That's kind of how I suppose it had to be. It maybe to feel like he had to survive and not show his emotions. So but also from a young age, when he was 13, he went to school one day. He came home and his mum was no longer there. It turns out his mum had been having a relationship with another man other than his dad, and she'd ran off with this guy, and he didn't see his mum for about another 10 years. Okay, and he was actually really close to his mum. He was heartbroken. He was 13. Anyway, about 10 years later, I think somebody said to him that they think they'd seen his mum in a pub uh, at lunchtime with her work colleagues. She's coming for a drink during her lunch break. And they said, Ricky, we think we better tell you. Like we think we saw your mum. So he went in for a few days in a row and apparently couldn't see her at all. But one day she was there and he's gone up to her table and he said to her, "Hi, mum, it's Ricky." And she went, "Sorry, I don't know who you are." And I think I can totally understand why my dad protects himself with that emotion there, why he acts like he's a big, strong, tough geezer man on the outside, because he can't get vulnerable. Because it's going to be too sensitive for him. It's going to be too emotional. He's had a lot of trauma. He's had a lot of heartbreak. So my dad has learned to put on a mask every single day, I suppose, and on the outside make sure he looks tough and strong, that nothing affects him. But really inside, he's a probably a 13-year-old little boy who needs a cuddle. So he really, really struggled. But like I said, he's an amazing man. He's an amazing man, and my mum's a fantastic mum as well. But I'll give you a bit of an example to kind of my kind of upbringing, I suppose. And uh, when I was going to primary school and secondary school, like I said, my parents were always supportive. My mum was always wanting to know what school was like, how was school, how was this. But I'll be honest with you, I was struggling at school. I really felt I had such low confidence, such low self-esteem. Um, I was always comparing myself to people. I don't know how people felt school was for them, but for me, it always felt like it was my school was split into two different crowds. You was either in a clever crowd or using a cool crowd. And when I was with the clever ones, I didn't feel clever enough to be around the clever ones. I felt like they'd be talking about subjects that'd be going well over my head. They could obviously not in primary school, mainly in secondary, but they'd be talking about politics or something, and I've no idea what they was talking about at the time. And I'd be wanting to fit in, and I'd be speaking in a much more kind of, I'd say, posher accent or posher voice than I speak now, just to kind of act like I know what I'm talking about, sound more intelligent. And when I was with the cool ones, I'd be speaking in my accents now. But I'd be acting more like the class clown. I'd be acting more like the Joker. I'd be trying to get them to laugh at a joke I'd said. Because I wanted to blend in with them. I wanted them to like me. So whichever group I was in, I was like a social chameleon. I was blending in just to get people to like me. Because actually, I didn't think I was that good enough. I didn't think I was clever enough. I didn't think I was funny enough. I didn't think I was good looking enough. You know what I mean? Whatever it was, I didn't think I was enough. Um, it was all, and I was so bothered about what people thought about me. The biggest fear I had was what people thought about me. And I've done an example with your kids when I was in the school, and they followed the trend that every school does when I do this. So I'm just going to explain it to you. What I've done, I do all the time, is I get them all standing up if they've got social media. So I could be filled with a room full of 250, 300 young people standing up, and I get them to sit down if they've got less than 100 followers on their social media platforms, or less than 200, less than 300, blah, blah, blah. And I go all the way up. And you can find someone in some schools who's posted a video and they've got like 3 million followers or 3 million views on a video they posted. So what I say to them, and they might be like 14 years old. So what I say to them is, okay, let's say I could give you all 3 million followers. If you posted a selfie and at 3 million followers, your selfie got, I don't know, 5 likes, how would you feel? All of them say, I feel embarrassed, I feel humiliated, I feel ugly. And I ask them, would you feel like taking a photo down? And near enough all of them say, yeah, I'll take the photo down. Like it's embarrassing. And then the last question I ask them is, okay, so put your hands up if you care what people think about you. Some put their hands up, but some put their hands down. And it's interesting because I try and point out to them that I didn't catch them out. They caught themselves out because they've just told me they feel embarrassed, they feel humiliated, they feel like removing a photo. But no, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. Well, clearly you do because you just took the photo down. So what I'm trying to get at them is look at today's world. We're trying to get our self-esteem so much, and especially young people, from what other people think about us. And they're trying to get it from social media. So if they got 3 million likes, what all of a sudden they're stunning, good looking, everyone loves them. If they only got 5, they're ugly and insecure and everyone hates them. They're giving other people the power to change the way they feel just by clicking a button. And then what I'm trying to point out with them is that I'm not digging them out. That actually describes me. How I was trying to do it in school was trying to get people's, I suppose, affection or get them to like me, get them to think I was good enough, whether I'd be hanging with the cool ones or hanging with the clever ones. I was always just trying to get people to like me. And that carried on all the way through my primary school. And when I got to 9 years old, I was very fortunate. Always played football. I was always running, always fit and healthy. Um, I got signed by Arsenal Football Club, who was the team I actually support. My whole family, like I said, are from North London. So I grew up supporting Arsenal. So that was the team I wanted to actually play for as well and supported. But the same feeling I had with school was the same thing I had with football. I didn't feel good enough. I felt like if I missed a shot, it'd be my fault. I thought if we missed a game, slightly lost the game, it'd be my fault. I always felt like everyone was blaming me. And by the way, what I've got to point out is no one said nothing. No one ever said anything. No one ever said to me, Joe, you're stupid. Joe, you're not clever enough. Joe, you're not good enough. Joe, you're not good enough at football. Joe, you're not this. No one said any of these things. They were my insecurities. They were my fears. But I just feel like everyone else can see them and see through them. So that's how kind of I was kind of, I suppose, working then. I was getting into kind of a victim mentality, getting into feeling sorry for myself mentality, that I'm not good enough, no one likes me, everyone's blaming me. But no one ever said any of these things. No one ever said any of these things. It was all in here. There was all my fears. And I hope you can hear the biggest fear I had was, what do people think about me? What do people think of me? Am I good enough? Do they think this? Do they think that? So I really, really struggled either at football or at school. To give you kind of one more final example, when I got to last year primary school, so 11 years old, we was all in our class, and I remember we had to go out for a break, and our teacher said, when you come out for break, please sit in the same seats, sit on the same table. So I went to sit in my chair, and my own friend Andrew was actually sitting in my chair. So I just said to him, mate, Miss said we've got to sit in the same seats. And he just done this, right? He done this little hand gesture. He went, "Ah, sit somewhere else, sit somewhere else." And I don't know about how everyone else would feel, but for me, I felt totally humiliated. I felt dismissed. I actually felt like it was the king dismissing its servant or something. I thought, is he actually just seriously dismissing me? Is he actually doing it like that? He even turned his head to the side and was like, "Oh, sit somewhere else." Now, what I've done with your children is I told them that. And I said to them, have you any of you ever fallen over before? Has anyone ever tripped up before? And they're all like, yeah, yeah, I've tripped up. And I went, it's embarrassing, isn't it? They're like, yeah. And I went, we have a little look around. When we trip up, we have a little look, see if anyone spotted us, and we get away with it. It's fine. I went, what about when you trip up or fall over and someone does spot you? And all of your kids were like, oh my God, it's embarrassing. It's just so embarrassing. I went, exactly. I went, that's how that feeling felt. Because when he dismissed me, there were three of my friends on the table and they all laughed. And so you can imagine the humiliation, the shame. I felt so self-conscious. So what I decided to do next was I decided to punch him. And I explained this to your children, who all, to be fair, got the concept. And I said, I hope you can hear how fearful I was, because some people in the past have mistaken that. Only a few people. And I thought I was really brave and confident. And I said it's the exact opposite. I was the most petrified, scared one in that room. I was so scared about what they thought about me. I needed to try and change what they thought about me by doing something violent. That's how scared I was. I was petrified. And it didn't even work. I got suspended from school for a week. When I came back to school, I had to have a meeting with my head teacher and the parents. That went on really, really late. So when I got into my first lesson, it was really late, and it was one of them quiet lessons where everyone's just doing their work all nice and quietly. And you feel like you can't disturb it. So I've pulled that handle down, I've turned that doorknob as I'm walking in. And what's the first thing everyone does when you walk in and into a quiet class? They all just turn and stare at you because they've heard the door open. So I felt even more self-conscious. So that's just how my life was in the early days. So you can hopefully hear how, I suppose, scared I was and how much I was struggling. That carried on all the way into my secondary school, and that kind of nerves and anxiety was just getting worse and worse and worse. But what I've got to point out, by the way, which I haven't told you so far, is I was exactly like my dad. Because every single day I was putting on a mask, acting like I was fine. No one could tell I was struggling. That's why I've asked for those stereotypes at the beginning, because I didn't look like that stereotypical kid. On the outside, I looked arrogant, I looked flash, I looked cocky, I was laughing all the time because I was so bothered about what you thought. I wasn't going to show you I feel scared or vulnerable or weak. That's how I thought it might look. So I was showing you that actually I was the opposite. I looked so confident, so happy. I looked like an extrovert, but really I'm an introvert who's scared what people think. So I was really, really worried, really worried. So I carried that on all the way into my secondary school, and it went on till I was about 14. When I was about 14, all my friends started to go out. And when I say going out, I don't mean to pubs or clubs or bars or anything like that. We was 14 years old. We was going over the local parks or local fields or walking the street, and, standing on the street corner, going around someone's house or so, stuff now. I just think, yeah, we thought that used to be glamorous, going over a local park. And now on a Friday night, I just want to have an early night, run a bath, burn some incense, and just relax, if I'm honest, whether you get up early in the morning, go to the gym or something. But ask me then on a Friday night, do I want to do them things? Of course, why not? Why not? Because we call it FOMO now. The young people call it FOMO, the fear of missing out, that acronym, fear of missing out. Because we all hated coming to the school on a Monday and feeling like you missed out on what happened on the weekend. Because you missed out on, oh, this one done this, that one said that, or this one kissed this one. That's what it was like, that kind of clicky kind of environment. I suppose if you think back to how it was for school for you guys, it might have been similar. It might have been similar. So I started to go out with my friends and didn't realize it at the time, but they'd started drinking alcohol. So I remember there was one week they've offered me some alcohol, and I felt like I had to take it because I was so bothered about what they thought. Like I said, I wanted to fit in. I was bothered about what they thought. I used to think an example of peer pressure was someone saying, like, here, drink this, or I'm not going to be a friend. That is the most basic form of peer pressure I've ever heard. And that's actually what I got taught. No one actually told me that peer pressure could actually be a feeling that you feel you have to conform with your peers because you feel the pressure to do so because you want them to like you. No one explained that to me. I just thought it was like someone having to actually force you to do something, which didn't happen. But when they've offered it, I felt like I had to, like I said. So I'm going to be honest about all my experiences, and I was to your kids as well. I got drunk that night. I got drunk, and from what I can remember, at that point, it was probably the best feeling I'd ever had because it took away all my anxiety, it took away all my nerves, it took away all that self-doubt. I felt that little boy that was putting on a mask every single day. When I had a drink, I didn't have to put that mask on. I became that person I wanted to be, kind of naturally, so to speak. Like I felt a lot better. I felt like I could be the person I wanted to be with a drink. I didn't have to fake it. So I've learned this kind of technique every single week, every Friday night. Me and my friends are just going out, having a drink, having a good time. And look, don't get me wrong, there were times I did have a very good time. Of course there was. But very quickly this escalated. And when I was 15, my friend, he had a brother. I think we was around his flat once, and he was there with his friends, and they were smoking weed, and it was a really really similar thing. They've offered us some weed, and again I felt like I had to do it because a couple of my friends did. The ones that didn't, by the way, I've got to point out we didn't judge them. But because the world revolves around me, I'm so special and important, aren't I? Like they're all going to judge me if I don't. I felt like I had to smoke the weed, and it was a really similar thing. It was a really similar thing. It made me feel more confident. I felt calm. I felt happier. That mask come back on again. That I didn't have to fake during the week. It come on every single time I was smoking weed or drinking. And I won't go through it, drug by drug. But very quickly after this, I'd been taking Class A drugs like cocaine and ecstasy and ketamine and other things like that. And it's escalated all the way through. And I was at times having some, like I said, having some good times. And I thought I was living a glamorous life or like a kind of party lifestyle kind of life. And I was going to bars and nightclubs eventually. But by the time I was 18, the drugs and alcohol stopped working. And what I mean by that is if I have a drink or drug now, of course I'll get drunk. Of course I'll get high. They'll work like that. But they wouldn't take my pain away no more. And they didn't when I was 18. It was actually making me feel worse. They'd make me feel more depressed. All the relationships I started having with anyone was just getting worse and worse. They was getting toxic. Any relationship I had with my family member, I was always lying about where I was. I was getting angry and aggressive. My friends, I was becoming a nuisance and annoying. They only ever wanted to hang around me out of loyalty in the end. And the girlfriend I ever had at the time, I was toxic in that relationship. I was manipulative. I always used to try and make people feel sorry for me as well. Like I'd sit there and I'd be like, if you knew what I went through, if you knew what I'd been through, if you knew the things I'd seen or the things I'd done, you'd understand. And they'd be like, why, Joe? What's going on? Tell us. And I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. So I'd make them feel bad for me. So they want to then help me. And say, I don't want to talk about it. They're so manipulative just to get them to feel sorry for me. I was acting like a victim all the time. And really, I was the one that putting myself in a position to either get hurt or do things or hurt myself. And still, I'm saying, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. On the outside, and people asking me if I'm all right, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's good. And it's carried on. It's just carried on. And basically, I think I was about 19 years old. A few of my friends booked holidays to Mexico, to Cancun, which is a beautiful place, by the way. I've got to defend it. Like it's a beautiful place. But the way I was enjoying it or experiencing it wasn't that nice. And obviously, some of you probably do know. If you don't, it's a country and a city that's rife for drugs. So for me being a cocaine addict, to be honest with you, it probably weren't the best choice and destination to go to. But me and my friends were young, we wanted to go there, and they invited me, so I went, and something that was meant to be a lovely kind of 2 week all-inclusive holiday turned into like a 6 day nightmare, because I was drinking heavily. I was using. All my friends just thought I was kind of wild, because really I wasn't telling them the truth what I was doing. They just thought I was kind of a bit wild, really, and someone fun to hang around with. When really inside I'm thinking I can't go on like this no more. I started having suicidal thoughts before this holiday anyway, but on this holiday. And this is where drugs take me. And this is what I ended up saying to your children, that you might be having a drink or a spliff or something at a young age, and you don't think it's going to progress to anywhere because you think, oh, it's only a drink, it's only a bit of weed, it's only a bit of this. If I ever do that drug, I'll stop. If I ever do this thing, I'll stop. Well, I thought all them things. I thought all them things. And within 5 years, ended up with me being in a foreign country, standing on a street corner in Cancun, where I've just passed a load of people that are like covered in tattoos. And don't get me wrong, you can see I've got tattoos. I'm not judging. I want to cover them in my body. But these are people that were covered in tattoos like all over their faces. It felt like I was in an episode of like the world's most dangerous prisons or something. And they're walking towards me whilst I'm waiting to get my drugs off of them. And I'm actually thinking like this is it. This is it. I thought I was a big, strong man at 19 years old. I wanted my mum. I wanted my mum just to cuddle me and tell me everything's going to be all right. And these people are coming closer towards me, and I just think I'm going to die. Like I'm going to die. Best case scenario is I'm going to get arrested if I can run away or whatever. But anyway, right at this point, as I've got my drugs, my cab driver pulled up. He said he would be 10 minutes when he dropped me off. And the relief I felt was great that now he's here and I'm safe. But the relief was more, now I've got my drugs, now I'll be okay. And that sums up my using in the end, my drug using in the end. And I'd gone back to my hotel because I'd left my friends there. They thought I'd be gone 10 minutes. Anyway, I was gone ages. They was really, really worried. I had a massive argument with them on purpose so they could leave me alone, because I wanted them to go out and they could leave me alone, which is what they did, which is what I wanted. So I manipulated it that way. And then I ended up watching, I was sitting in my hotel room, I was on the ninth floor. I had the lights off because I was so paranoid that if I had the lights on, someone will see into my room, know what I'm doing. I was watching the TV on the lowest volume possible, because any louder than that, I thought people could hear, know what I'm doing. I was watching Mission Impossible 3. It was in Spanish and it had French subtitles, so I didn't even have a clue what was going on. And I paid money to be in that state. And I had a call from my ex-girlfriend at the time. Um, and we had a massive argument because she'd done absolutely nothing wrong, bless her. I'd just much rather get aggressive and make her feel bad to make myself feel better, rather than break down in tears and say, I need help, I'm struggling. And that kind of sums me up as a person, if I'm honest. And or it did sum me up then. And that's where I suppose the following morning, I don't really remember any of this because my friends told me they came back to the hotel and they found me paralytic, drunk, and high. And I was on the balcony apparently saying I wanted to kill myself. I don't remember any of that. Apparently they'd phoned my parents who bought me a flight home for the next day. So as they're telling me the next day, like I'm kind of telling you now, it felt like a different person. So apparently that day I've got a flight, but I've gone down for breakfast and I've had a couple of beers because I feel fine now. Now that for me, that shows addiction right there. I feel fine. I feel fine now. Yes, I apparently want to kill myself, but today I feel fine. So that's what it's like. And anyway, I come back to England, and it went on for like that for the next year. I won't go on for too much longer about that, but basically, a friend of mine then asked me to go and meet him and actually in a game, to watch a game of football in a pub. And as I went, this man turned up who my friend knew, and what I thought was an accident, I now know was set up, was staged. He got this guy to be there on purpose, and this guy walks in and he starts sitting down and telling me about his life, really, and it felt like my exact life and my emotions and my mental health. And I didn't tell him any of this, by the way, because I was so bothered about what he thought. But in my mind, I was just sitting there going, "Yeah, that's me. That's me. I've done that. I felt like this. I care so much. Blah blah blah." I didn't tell him nothing. He said to me, "Joe, I'm 3.5 years clean. Do you want my number?" And I said yes to be polite because I didn't want to offend him. I was still bothered about what he thought. You can just see how that still runs through. I was bothered about what he thought about me. So I took his number, but I had no intention of ever ringing him. And anyway, he rang me for a few weeks in a row, but I just didn't answer the phone. And then there was one week where I just picked the phone up and we had a bit of a chat. And he said to me, like, I'm going to this place tonight where I went to get help years ago. Do you want to come? And I said yes, without asking him what it was, which I'm really pleased about in hindsight. Anyway, I turned up at this place. And when I was there that evening, I said to him, so what is this place? What is it you brought me to? And he went, it's an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I thought, is he is he serious? Like, he's brought me to an AA meeting. I thought the only experience I have of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is watching a really cheap, low budget film where everyone is sitting around in a circle and they're all just going around the room saying like, "Hi, my name's Joe, I'm an alcoholic," and introducing themselves like that and speaking about their feelings. I thought, is it like, if it's like that, I ain't going. Anyway, I walked in and every single person was sitting around in a circle introducing themselves like that, and I thought this is a joke. This is ridiculous. I thought, well, I'll stay for the hour. I'll go. Anyway, some woman opened her mouth and she said how she was 7 years clean and she's had the best relationship for 7 years, her and her husband. And this other person said they were 7 days and 7 months. And someone said that they've had the best working relationship with their manager for like 2 years and they're 2 years clean. And then someone else said 2 months and 2 weeks and 2 days. It was just a real variation of time. And I'm just sitting there thinking, how have you guys done this? And they're all talking about their feelings. I'm like, how do you talk about your feelings? And they went to me, Joe, just do one day at a time. Just do one day at a time. I remember thinking, yeah, but what about my 21st birthday? Could I have a drink on my 21st birthday? They went, mate, that's 2 years away. Just do one day at a time. I was like, right, okay, one day at a time. I remember thinking, what about when I get married? Like at my wedding, can I have a drink at my wedding? They're like, mate, your girlfriend just dumped you. So let's deal with that then, right? And I went, right, oh, yeah, that's true, that's true. I went, deal with it when you're actually in a relationship. Deal with it when you're at your wedding. I was like, right, okay. I went, just do one day at a time. It was hard. It took me a few years. It wasn't easy. Because I still wanted to do things my way. When I actually reached out for help and asked someone for help and actually truly reflected on my behaviors and my self-esteem and how I act and how I could be manipulative, uh, and look at healthy coping strategies instead, such as exercise, meditation, other bits and pieces, which I'll get into in a bit, writing down my feelings, talking about your feelings, whatever it might be. When I started using these coping strategies, things started to get better. And I had to be honest, I had to be really honest with one myself, but two with other people. My life's just turned around. So that was nearly 12 years ago. Right? I'm 34 now. I'm going to be 12 years clean and sober. I don't have a drink. I don't have a drug. I mean, even at Christmas, nothing. Don't have a sip of alcohol, nothing on my birthday, anything at all. And I don't sit there with the young people and say that's what they need to do. I don't advocate that. I don't tell them don't drink, don't take drugs. I think that's ridiculous. And if I do, they're not going to listen. I wouldn't tell them what university to go to. I wouldn't tell them what they should do for the living. Who am I to be that arrogant and egotistical to think I know what other people should do? All I know is what I should do. Uh, and if someone likes what I do and they want help and advice, then they can follow what I did. It's much more like that for me. So that's kind of how things are, or how it went. Just want to end on what my life's like now. Like, so my life, I feel like I've got the best life now. I really do. No, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean work doesn't get annoying. Doesn't mean I might not have a relationship issue. Doesn't mean I might not have financial worries. Doesn't mean any of them things. But honestly, I sometimes feel like I'm the wealthiest man in the world because my wealth is not based on finance or materialistic stuff. It's based on how I feel inside. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, I've got a mortgage. Yes, I've got a car. Yes, got all them stuff. If I was in financial trouble and lost all that stuff, I'd be heartbroken. Of course I would. But I know I'd be all right. I know I'd be all right. I know I wouldn't have to have a drink or a drug to change the way I feel. Um, the relationship with all my family are back together now. And one of my sisters, it got so bad she didn't want to talk to me, but I went back to everyone in my life, including my family and her, and made amends to everyone I'd ever hurt. And she actually asked me to be a groomsman at her wedding. And she moved to Australia 8 years ago. Now, for me, this is a miracle that she actually asked me to be a groomsman because, like I said, this is someone who didn't want to talk to me. And anyway, I found out when we was out there, my other sister, she told the family that she was pregnant. Her and her husband was going to have a baby. So I'm standing at the front of my sister's wedding, and I'm watching my other sister come down the aisle, the one who's pregnant, and I'm like, oh my God, you're going to be an uncle. You're going to be an uncle. And I started getting all emotional, right? I was thinking, right, don't cry, don't cry. All these people are watching. And I thought, right, think of dad. Dad's a geezer. He won't be crying. I turned and looked at my dad. My dad was crying his eyes out. It was an absolute pieces. Um, anyway, my sister Sam then come down the aisle, the one who was getting married, and the tears were just flowing from my face. She just looked absolutely stunning and beautiful. And it wasn't even the good tears where silent ones. It was the hyperventilating, like where you kind of can't breathe. I was like that. So if I ever get married, I think I'm going to be in trouble. But yeah, what I'm getting at is I had this feeling at this moment where I thought, oh my God, people can see me crying. Then I realized, hang on a minute, my sister lives 9,000 miles away. She's getting married. My other sister is going to have a baby. I'm going to be an uncle to her kid. It'd be more abnormal if I weren't emotional. It'd be more abnormal. But although that day's going on, it shows me the most important thing I care about is, oh, what do people think about me? Can someone see me crying? So what? So what? Um, Anyway, that was 8 years ago. My sister here, she now has two little boys. My sister who lived abroad, she actually moved back here in August, and she's got a son. So I get to spend a lot more time with her family as well. The final thing I want to end on is I never thought I'd actually be able to have a relationship myself. I don't think I'd be able to actually have one because I didn't have one with myself. So like I said to you, I've done a lot of work on myself. I remember I was actually single for a couple of years from like 22, 24, maybe didn't even go on a date with anyone. And I say this to young people, I just wanted to work on me. Um, and I got to the point where I was able, I suppose, to start having relationships and or even I suppose the possibility of one. And anyway, I met my current partner about 3 years ago, and she for me is just the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. I mean, other than being the most stunningly beautiful person ever physically, she is the kindest and the sweetest and the funniest, and she just cracks me up all the time. She's clever. She's got everything going for her, right? She's Greek Cypriot. She's absolutely amazing. Um, I remember we got invited to her cousin's wedding a couple of years ago in Cyprus. She asked me to go, so it was the first time I was meeting kind of all her extended family. So being from a Greek Cypriot family, you can imagine there's about 4,000 uncles, 7,000 aunts, 20,000 cousins. All right, it's all like it's literally like if anyone's ever seen my big fat Greek wedding, or if you haven't, I recommend going and seeing it. It's literally that's literally what it's like. They constantly cook for you. You tell them you're not hungry, they say, okay, no worries, and then they bring out a three-course meal. It's literally what it's like. Uh, but I love it. Now, what I'm getting at is I was able to be at this wedding. I was able to dance, right, badly, but dance and not care what anyone's thinking about me. Talk to people. A lot of them all talking Greek around me. And my girlfriend come up to me and she went, I'm so proud of you. She went, you're not, you're able to do all this. You're chatting with people. They're speaking Greek around you. You're dancing. You're doing all this without drinks. She went, even I'd need a drink to do this. I said, it's so funny. That for me kind of sums up, I don't want to say British culture actually, but so it kind of sums up culture in general that anything we feel a little bit daunting, it's like, oh, quick, have a drink, take the edge off. Oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do this. Really? Have you tried not? Have you tried not? So just show it summed it up. Although she was so proud of me, I was just like, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, look how normalized that is that we've got to have a drink, call it Dutch courage to have a dance, because what are people going to think? When the penny dropped for me that no one cares. I'm not that important. No one is standing there talking about me, about what shoes I've got on, about what my shirt looks like, about what a bad dancer I am, what a good dancer I am. I ain't that important. And also, they're also self-conscious. They're thinking about what everyone else thinks of them. Um, so people are just not that important. Anyway, we went to Paris last January, for her Christmas present. And she was telling all her work colleagues, and they was all coming back to her and saying, we think Joe's going to propose to you. Think you're going to get engaged. You're going to get engaged. And every single week she was coming home and she was saying like this new friend had said, we're going to get engaged. And then on my friend this, my friend that. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think she had that many friends. I'm sitting there thinking, is she trying to pretend it's all her friends asking when really it's her asking if we're getting engaged? And I just had to say to her, like, I don't want you to get your hopes up, but like, I wasn't planning to propose just yet. And she's like, no, no, I know. Anyway, since that day though, I have got a feeling she wants to get married and she wants to get engaged because I've been getting about 4 million pictures sent to my WhatsApp. So I'm definitely getting a feeling that my girlfriend wants to get engaged from the amount of photos she's sending of engagement rings to my WhatsApp. Um, anyway, uh, last week I bought an engagement ring, So um, it's going to be ready in about a month. It's getting made or whatever. So yeah, I'm going to be proposing to her in just over a month. Uh, she will say yes. I ain't got to worry about that. We've like because we've already been looking at engagement ring designs and things, so I know she's going to say yes. And I just love this girl so much. And the reason I want to end on her, and the reason I want to end so positively like that, is because I have got too much to lose now. I have. Now, by the way, take all that stuff away, even take my partner away. Like I'd be devastated, I'd be heartbroken. I'm not going to pretend I wouldn't, but I know I wouldn't have to have a drink or a drug to use it because I've got tools now. I've got tools. But the thought of having a drink or a drug or doing anything to change the way I feel, I don't want to do. I want to look at positive ways to do it. What's my motivation for doing things? This is what I say to the young people. I say, look, you might be listening to me and might not be able to relate when I'm talking about that kind of addiction. So what kind of addiction can they relate to? Well, for me, technology, social media, phones. I said to them, what's the first thing we do nearly every single morning? Check our phones. What's the last thing we do nearly every single night? Check our phones. How many of us just sit there at home? We're just sitting there like this on our phone. Or how many of us got the TV on whilst I'm on my phone? So I'm watching the screen whilst I'm watching the screen. And if someone turned the TV off, I'd be annoyed, like, what are you doing? I'm watching that. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And people just go out with their friends and all they do is just sitting there. They're meant to be having a meal or coffee or whatever it is, and just sitting there on their phones, not really talking or getting distracted. And then they turn their phone upside down to show that if someone's ringing them, they're not that bothered about it. Put your phone in your pocket. Because actually, it doesn't really look very polite, does it? You're just sitting there like that. Phones are dominating us. Because actually, if the phone went off, you would still have a look. Let's have it right. To young people, I set them a little challenge or just asked them a question. Do they feel that they could leave their phone at home for 1 week, not turn it on, not go on social media, not do any of that, and actually be content with it? So, do you think you could do it? And a lot of them, well, most of them said no. I said, no, I don't blame you. And actually, look, there's things we actually need the phone for. I'm not talking about emergencies or to be in touch with parents or anything, but do you actually feel you could do it and be happy with it? And I was like, no, so I feel like I'd be missing out. Right. So when I'm talking about addiction, it doesn't just have to be phones. It's a variety of things. So like I've talked for far too long. Now I want to leave it. I want to leave it there, and I want to hear from you guys. If you guys have got any questions, feel free. I think as Miss said earlier, to kind of send things through to the email address, or to put something in the chat. Either way is comfortable for me, and then we'll get into the kind of final couple of slides in a bit. But I just want to leave it there now. Thank you everyone for listening. So yeah, I'll hand over for any questions. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I'll tell you, when you start talking about your impending engagement and your girlfriend, yeah, I actually had tears written in my eyes there. So I've managed to recover myself. Now I'm back on there. Congratulations. What an amazing story. And thank you for sharing that with us, because I know it's not easy to do that. But, while we're waiting for any questions to come through, I've got a couple I'm writing down as we're going on. How did your mum and dad respond to all of this? I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, no, brilliant question. Thank you. You know what? Very, very supportive. But I would say their initial reaction was kind of angry. But that's only because it's based on fear. That's only because it's based on fear. They were scared. Like I'm their little boy. When I look at it, like when I spoke to my mum years ago, she was like, "I'm your mum. I've carried you in my belly for 9 months. My one job in the world is to look after you and protect you. And I see you hurting yourself." She was like, so that's why it was. She just wanted to shout and be like, "What are you doing? You're doing this. You're doing that." So she only reacted angrily through fear. But what my parents did do, well, mainly my mum, it's only because my dad, bless him, he can't handle stuff. That's why he didn't do this stuff really. But she was she was researching what local drug and alcohol service I could go to, looking at AA meetings, looking at all these different things, looking at rehabs, looking at all these different options. So she was supportive in that way. They used to drop me off at different meetings and places when I didn't drive. So yeah, they was very supportive in that way. My dad, bless him, I suppose he kind of gave his thoughts through my mum, who gave it to me because he finds it hard to talk about that stuff or any stuff, or I'd hear what my dad thought through my mum. So it worked either way. But what I've got to say is very, very supportive. And actually, the first Christmas I ever had sober, they was like, "Look, if you don't want any alcohol in the home, we don't have to have any. We don't have to have anything." And like they're so kind. But what I remember saying to them is, it's me that's got to change. It's not you. I want life to be as normal as possible. Now, just to let you know how things have turned around. Like they're not even. I don't say they're not bothered. Of course they're bothered, but it's much more. They trust me so much. It doesn't even enter their minds. Christmas just gone. Got my sisters there, their partners. There's some in-laws around, and like everyone's drinking around me. No one even cares really. It's like I just don't drink. That is it. They're not bothered. The trust has come back so much from my mum and dad. I just want to tell you this final story. So I'm the youngest, right? So I've got my two older sisters. I'm the youngest. My mum and dad wrote their will a couple of years ago, and they made me the executor of their will, which I was really surprised at. I remember asking my mum, like, how comes me? I thought even chronologically it would have been Sam or Amy. And she said, me and your dad just trust you so much. As you went, your head is so screwed on that we know, if when we pass away, that you'd say to the girls that the money from the house is going towards this. Mum and dad want it to go towards your futures. They want it to be done on this, not on a holiday, not on a new car because you want a new car, not on this. It wants to be going on your future for a deposit for your kids, for things like that. But they made me the executor of their will, and I used to steal their money. So that shows how they've gone from being incredibly supportive because I needed it in their own way to now, I'm supporting them in kind of one respect as they're getting a bit older and stuff. So yeah, that's how initially they reacted, but it's worked out beautifully.
That's fantastic. And how did you become involved with the Amy Winehouse Foundation?
Yeah, so I was actually working at the time as a personal trainer and on building sites. And to be honest, the building site job I absolutely loved. that camaraderie was fantastic. But I didn't like the personal training job anymore, because I was in recovery, which was about working on my insides, and I was working in a job that's about working on your outsides. So I hated going to the gym and working in an environment where someone's doing one rep of the world's heaviest weight that they can't even do and grunting and throwing it on the floor. And I just thought, I need to get out of this. This is not good. It's not good for my mind, my well-being. Anyway, I was still doing those jobs, and I met Amy Winehouse's dad, Mitch, at an event, funny enough, just at some other charity event. And we got chatting, and he said to me about how they had this school's resilience program. So I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to volunteer. So I started volunteering probably once a month, going into schools and delivering kind of talks. Uh, and then a position come up to run it about 8 years ago. So I went for it. I went for it, and I got a position. And then, fun enough, about 3 years ago, 3 and a bit years ago, actually, yeah, more than that, 3.5 years ago, I got a job working in Holland. Well, I got offered a job working in Holland in a rehab, which I accepted. Um, anyway, I came back and I told my bosses, which is Amy's, parents and step parents. And I'll be honest with you, I weren't expecting this reaction, but they kind of cried and said, we don't want you to go. What can we do to get you to stay? And then, had a conversation about my future and bits and pieces like that. And anyway, now I've become the programs manager for the last 3.5 years. And actually, of course, I always wanted to stay here. Of course, I was just thinking about my future, my own life, but it worked out really well because I wouldn't have met my soon-to-be fiance. My nephews are here. So yeah, that's how I got initially involved. I initially started volunteering, and now I've become within, yeah, like I said, 5 years, the manager of the foundation. Yeah.
And and obviously Amy was such a beautiful young lady, such talent. And looking at her, you would never know that she suffered from those self-esteem issues, would you?
No,
Unbelievable.
yeah, I mean, looking at her there, I mean, you see that great voice, don't you? That powerful voice. You see the makeup, the beehive. I mean, but I suppose actually, that's why I asked about them stereotypes, because as you said, looking at her, you think she seems quite, if anything, she seems cocky. She seems a bit arrogant here, but then you can actually go, oh my God, yeah, you can see. All right, don't get me wrong, some part of that was Amy's personality. Her dad Mitch and her mum actually both saying, oh, she could be a little devil at times. Um, but you can also understand and go, yeah, actually, yeah, you can see you were struggling. You can see you were struggling actually. And there's always got, for me, anyone that struggles with addiction issues, it is never about the substance. It's never about the substance. Why are you drinking? Why are you taking drugs? You're not doing it just because you like the flavor so much. You're not. I'm not being funny. Alcohol don't taste that nice, no matter what drink it is. So there's always a reason behind it. It's like, why is someone self-harming? Why is someone going to the gym 2 or 3 times a day? Why is someone eating too much? Why is someone not eating enough? There's always a reason behind it. And it's generally trying to control or change the way they feel emotionally. So you can kind of look back and see that in Amy, I suppose, now, in hindsight. I think there's that famous one for me, which is the ex-footballer Gary Speed, who was on a match of the day program on a Saturday afternoon, a Saturday morning, filmed it, and all his colleagues and friends said he was normal. He was normal. He was happy, and he went home that day and took his own life. And no one knew. No one knew what they were struggling with. And I suppose that's why I'm asking the stereotypes. We might see someone on the outside as looking all right, but we don't know what's going on inside. So it's just a good plant a seed really about that kind of situation, really, to get people thinking that we don't really know what's going on. It's just to try and check in on people, see how they are. And necessarily the ones that are struggling that are obvious aren't always might be okay. I might be struggling, but the ones that look fine might not be. So I need to give as much, I suppose, thought and consideration to those people as well. Yeah.
And also talking about characters as well, because when you're saying that you can be an extrovert on the outside, like what you were when you're at school, and
Yeah.
some people naturally present themselves, whether that's for their job or anywhere else, but inside you've got that counter introvert, haven't you? And
Yeah.
that's the person that listens to all the criticism, isn't it? The
It
ones that,
is.
and it wounds, and it's how because I think with age you kind of get the more punches you take with age. I know in my job I get a lot of punches. You kind of get past that, but what help is there out there for people, do you think, to younger people to get over that?
Great. You know what? Great question. I'm so pleased you asked that, because actually I got asked very similar by a student actually at the school when I was there. And this girl said to me, she went, "You sound like you've got a lot of resilience. So you've got a lot of resilience. How did you kind of get that?" Now, this is only an opinion, right? And I haven't got the facts for it yet. but we are, and in a good respect, we are looking after young people so well, so much about their mental health, so much we're looking after them in a way that they should be looked after, of course. But we're setting young people up to fail because you'll be getting like 17th or 8th place medals in a race if you come 17th or 18th. It's like it's always the taking part that counts, which yes, of course it's true. Of course it's true. It's taking part that counts. I'm saying it doesn't matter if you lost this, doesn't matter if you've done that bad grade, it doesn't matter if it's like failure's not an option. And now to be honest with you, everyone fails. I'm a failure. Everyone's failed at something in their life. If you lose a football game, you failed that one game. If you lost a race, you lost that race. You're a failure in that race. It is what it is. But some people have other skills in maths and some people are better in that thing. So there's two things to it. There's either you work harder and you can become better, or you won't ever become better at that thing. And that is absolutely fine because your skills might lie elsewhere as well. But young people have to learn that failure is a part of life because I sometimes feel we're setting them up that everything's rosy and protecting them way too much. And it's creating an idea of everything is instantaneous through Instagram and social media, that they get everything they want right now, very, very sensitive. That when by the time they get to 18, they'll apply for their first university, their first choice, they won't get it, and they'll be absolutely devastated. Or they won't be able to handle a relationship breaking up in the future, or they won't be able to handle a job interview that's gone bad. I'm like, right, you only learn to be resilient through your past adversities. So I think we need to actually help young people understand that. I think that it's normal to not be great at everything. It's normal to fail in certain things. You either try harder and can get better and succeed, or you'll succeed in other areas. Like I said, I'm awful at geography. I was bad at maths. Doesn't mean enough. As much as I could work harder, yeah, I could have got better, or sometimes I just couldn't grasp the concepts, right? I just couldn't get it, but I was better in other areas. Just because I compare myself to someone who's better at maths doesn't mean they're a better individual than me. So we've got to set people up to understand that we've all got different qualities, but it's okay to not succeed because I think we're setting young people up to kind of fail. So as you said, I think with age and maturity, naturally that comes. But in today's generation, it's becoming a bit, in my opinion, a bit too that you can't upset anyone. And of course, I don't mean no one should not. We don't want to upset anyone. That's obviously the ideal, but people will get upset. Someone will disagree with what I say. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to want to try and cancel someone's career because they disagree with what I've said. You just deal with it. You could disagree and you get on. So that's my opinion. They have to learn adversity through their own experiences. But we can help by being realistic with them. I hope that kind of answers it really.
Yeah, and I suppose as parents as well, and then obviously our audience are parents right now, and I'm a parent, because life was probably, and I'm probably in the same age bracket as your parents, life wasn't a bed of roses. So therefore, we protect our children.
Of
We
course.
don't want them to fail because that failure hurts us, doesn't it? You don't want your children to fail.
Yeah.
So as parents, we have to be brave, don't we? We have to go, it's fine if you fall down, pick yourself back
Absolutely.
up and get on with it. So I suppose we as parents have got a big part to play in this as well.
You make a fair point, and actually, that's what a lot. When I become a parent, I've got three nephews. When I become a parent, would I want my young person to go through some sort of sadness? No, of course I wouldn't. I'd want to protect you. You're spot on. But did you? Did I? Did we? As you say, we all did. We all did. It's unrealistic to think that in the world they're not going to go through some sort of adversity. Um, it's just not possible. And of course, we don't want them to go through that sadness, but that's what shapes them. That's what shapes them. My mum said it to me, funny enough, on Monday. She went to me, I'm so glad my kids are sensitive. So I'm so glad you're sensitive because you're in the real world. You're living. I taught you sensitivity. I was able to get you to, and I'm like, yeah, actually, she's spot on. She's spot on. Because what we want our kids to get every single job. We want them to be the best runner, the best mathematician, the best. Like, come on, let's be realistic. But how do I be a parent or a guardian or someone supportive to that young person? To be able to be there and say it'll be okay, it'll be all right, and this doesn't define you. This doesn't define you. Do what makes you happy. If that job you went for was going to make you happy, okay, fine. But there's going to be another job. There's going to be, you know what I mean? You will be okay. But and you're right. As a parent, I can't speak for that. I wouldn't want to patronize any parent, but the best thing you can do is to be realistic with them and signpost them in the direction where they could get support, either from their like a professional. They can do meditation, they can look at manifestations, they can look at anxiety techniques, they can look at self-esteem courses, they can just look at building their own confidence in ways that they enjoy doing it, doing hobbies, things that are positive for them. Always say do exercise. It's been proven it releases the positive endorphins in our brains. It's the body's natural feel-good chemical. write down your feelings, do music, listen to music, relate to the lyrics. There's all these different techniques we can put in place or give them to help them support themselves. I think that was a bit of a rant, but hopefully it made sense and it links in.
Does. And I suppose, young people have got high expectations of themselves as well. With
Yeah,
social media, everybody seems to be up here, don't they? No one's doing anything wrong. They're all doing well. We've got to just be careful that it's all right. It's good to have aspiration, but
yeah,
not everyone's going to be up there. It's
No,
being happy where you are, isn't it?
it is, and I think you're spot on. Social media, if you look at it, ironically, I feel like it should be called anti-social media. But if you look at it, you generally, most of the time, give or take a few people that are showing, in my opinion, some positive stuff. Most people are showing the big house, their fancy holiday, their perfect body, how much money they've got, the yacht they've just been on, and they're looking like they're living the world's most glamorous life. Now, either some of them are multi-millionaires and they're celebrities that can do that. A lot of it is free endorsements. A lot of it is people that are actually normal people and they're in a hell of a lot of debt, or because they want to live that life. Or there's some people, they're taking a picture outside a restaurant in front of a fancy car, and they didn't go to the restaurant, and that's not their car. They're just presenting that image. So when we look at the realistic stuff and go, but this is what they're comparing themselves to. This is what they see. And sometimes the bit for me that actually gets me is they go, I know it's not real. I know it's not fake. I'm like, right. But you still look at that and compare yourself to it. I'm like, they go, yeah. I'm like, right. So that's the mad part. You might know it's fake, but that's mad if you're still going, but that's what I'm comparing myself to. So I have to have realistic expectations from the media in general, not just social media, I suppose, but looking at getting their well-being and their self-esteem from themselves or positive outside sources. People that I suppose truly care about them, good friendships, family members, or supportive. If they've got a cousin or a grandparent that is really meaningful, someone that they feel they can talk to and are close to, get their kind of support from those places rather than TikTok. So yeah, that's what I think.
And I know you've got a couple more slides, so should we go ahead
Yes,
with those
please.
slides?
Yeah, Eamon, just
Brilliant.
the final couple of slides, please, if possible. So these are just like four that I use all the time, and I would suggest to people, right? Exercise, whatever that be. And I don't mean you have to go to the gym. I don't mean you have to go and do a 5K run. Go for a walk. Go for a walk. Do some dancing. I say to the young people, even if they're just in their room, if they've got their room, got a bit of music, put their earphones in, do a bit of dancing, whatever, do a little home workout, go for a walk outside if you can go for a walk. Get the body kind of moving, get the positive endorphins flowing. It is the body's natural feel-good chemical, okay? You might feel bad during it. I always like to try and think of that famous Muhammad Ali quote. He said he hated every minute of training, every minute of it, but he'd done it and said he wants to live his life, the rest of it, as the champion, right? That's how I sometimes feel. All right, I'm not comparing myself to Muhammad Ali, of course not, but I don't always like exercising, but I feel better after it. That's what I mean from that. Meditation, taking some time to relax, to unwind. It doesn't just have to be meditation where you feel like you're sitting still, listening to chanting music. That could be one form of it. Meditation could be going for a walk in a forest, being around nature, that form of meditation, whatever works for everyone else, but get some time to yourself so you're doing things that are positive for yourself. If it is a kind of sitting down meditation, fantastic, engage in that. One of the most important ones for me, talking to someone. Could it be a professional? Could it be their teacher? Could it be, like I said, their family member, a friend, whoever it might be? I always want them to try and have someone supportive that they can talk to, someone that they feel is really a good, strong person that gives good, solid, I don't say actually advice, but actually just listens really well. So talk to someone, don't keep the feelings bottled up inside. There's a saying that I love, which is called, "You're as sick as your secrets." And I think, yeah, for me, because when I keep my secrets inside about what I feel, what I've been going through, this stuff, I become more sick with them because I don't want to let anyone know because I'm embarrassed and ashamed about them. But actually, when I let them out, I feel better. Doesn't mean the problem goes away, but I feel a lot better because it feels like that saying a problem shared is a problem halved. That's generally how I feel. Or writing down your feelings. You might not feel you can talk to someone. You might not have that someone. Get them out on paper. Do something creative. Could you do some artwork? Do some drawing? Express yourself emotionally that way. I mean, how many famous artists, famous musicians? I mean, look at Amy. You look at some of her songs. Look at the lyrics. Look at what she was writing down about relationships and different feelings and different thoughts. That's what she was doing. She was getting her kind of emotions out on paper. A lot of people do this. So for me, they're kind of like I suppose, not to say the top four, but like four key ones that I would use. But look, there's many more. People got to find their kind of own way. Thank you, Eamon. I think I've got one more slide after this, please. Oh, yeah. Well, that was it, the Q&A. So actually, no, that is it. So unless there isn't any questions, or if there is any, please feel free to forward them on if I can answer any. But yeah, that's kind of it. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Joe, it's been lovely talking to you. Lovely to meet you. Can't wait for you to come back to LVS as well. Well done for the work you're doing with the foundation as well. I can see why they employed you. What an ambassador. You're amazing.
Well, thank
Mum
you.
and Dad must be so proud of you. If you're my son, I'm very proud of you. And look, good luck with the engagement. Please let us know how it goes.
No, I will.
And keep in touch with us, and we'll see you soon. But have a lovely
Lovely.
weekend, and goodbye to
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.